ladies and gentlemen. My name is not Lakila Anderson. I'm Dave Rockland. I'm the evening reference librarian at Shepherd Library, but I'll be covering this portion of the presentation where we will be talking about academic integrity and avoiding plagiarism. So, what is academic integrity? According to Oxford's Advanced Learner's Dictionary, integrity is defined as adherence to moral and ethical principles. And North Carolina Central University's handbook defines academic dishonesty as the following: any conduct that is intended by the student to obtain for him or herself or for others an unfair or false evaluation in connection with any examination or other work for academic credit. More loosely speaking, it's cheating. Abraham Lincoln said, "No man has a good enough memory to be a successful liar." And Michelle Obama said, "We learned about honesty and integrity, that the truth matters, that you don't take shortcuts or play by your own set of rules, and success doesn't count unless you earn it fair and square." And that is the truth, some examples of which you will see later on. What is plagiarism? How many of you could define plagiarism without looking at the screen?
Using someone else's work without citing it.
Using someone else's work without citing it. What else?
Basically what she said.
Okay. Yes.
I found out that plagiarism, even if you try to write the statement in your own words and it still sounds similar to their writing, and you don't cite it, it's still plagiarism.
Yep, it can be plagiarism even if you use your own words. Some of that is something that we call idea plagiarism, where even if you completely change everything and say it in your own words, if you're discussing an original idea and you don't mention whose idea it was, and it looks like you're claiming it's your own idea, that's plagiarism.
So like paraphrasing.
Paraphrasing can still be plagiarism if you are not adequately explaining where it came from. So if you paraphrase Einstein's theory of relativity, but don't mention that it was Albert Einstein's idea, that's effectively plagiarism. It's idea plagiarism. Use of another source's words or ideas outside of common knowledge without giving appropriate credit to that source. Common knowledge, really, that's things you can think of off the top of your head. Barack Obama was our last president. That's common knowledge. What he wrote his thesis on for his final year of law school, that's probably not common knowledge. And so you might have to credit the source if you found that information and used it in a paper. A failure to acknowledge sources that can be either intentional or unintentional. Most of the plagiarism that we see is unintentional. It's people not marking sources or not citing sources because they either didn't know that they were using a source in that way, or they don't know how to do the citations, which is something that the library can help you with in great detail. We have lots of resources that make it much easier for you to create correct citations very easily. A few seemingly harmless errors in judgment, though, could lead to some major repercussions. Some reasons for plagiarism: poor time management. Waiting till the last minute will often make it difficult for you to use the citations that you know you need to do, but you don't have time to do them. Lack of confidence in one's own thoughts or writing. Be confident in what you say. If you know an idea is not your own idea, it's okay to quote it directly from someone else and cite it. You're better off doing that than trying to come up with your own way of saying it and not crediting other people. Assumption that an instructor will not notice or care. They will care, and they will notice, because a lot of our instructors, probably almost all of them at this point, are running assignments through SafeAssign. And they can see exactly what percentage of an assignment is your own original writing and what was taken from other sources. and unfamiliarity with plagiarism and proper citation format. So we aim tonight to make you familiar with what circumstances could be considered plagiarism and how to avoid those, and it's really not hard. We're going to play a short YouTube video. If this is the one I'm thinking, it's pretty funny.
This is the one. Hopefully it's gonna play.
Let's suppose that you're writing a really important email to a colleague.
We can skip the ad. We'll go.
Plagiarism, a la schmo. Johnny Theater just loves life under the bright lights.
Well, that means I like it on stage.
And yeah, okay, Johnny Theater is just his stage name. He changed it a few years back from Joe Actor. Johnny is in awe of playwrights who can manipulate language like it was Play-Doh. He is so in awe of them, in fact, that he decides to start borrowing some of their work and passing it off as his own. That is why they call it plagiarism, after all, right? Like any thief, he starts small. For a while, it's just a line here and there that speaks to him. But by the end of the year, he's submitting full plays to publishers with just the title changed. It isn't long before someone realizes that Johnny's play, Seriously Tortured Guy, is actually Hamlet. Oopsies. Immediately, Johnny is kicked out of his theater group. No other theaters in town will have him. But that's only the tip of the iceberg. The head of his old theater company publicizes the offense, and suddenly Johnny's writing career is as dead as his acting career. David Mamet catches wind of the fact that Johnny took his play, Glengarry Glen Ross, and published it under the title, Dude, Where Are My Leads? He brings a lawsuit against Johnny. Before long, Johnny has lost his life savings in court fees, his home, his possessions, and his pet turtle Gilbert, who can't even look him in the eye anymore. He even serves a few months jail time, and plagiarizers don't get their own jail. He shares a cell with some guy who's still got half an ear in his mouth. Things got bad in a hurry for Johnny, but they don't have to get bad for you. Plagiarism is a crime, a theft of ideas rather than of a physical thing, but a crime all the same. And it's totally unnecessary. You can always reference someone else's words or ideas, as long as you give them credit by citing them properly. Of course, not all plagiarism is intentional. Some people have gotten in quite a bit of trouble for repeating someone else's phrasings unintentionally.
Expelliarmus!
Which is why you must be sure to know and understand the citation process, and to be careful whenever you are putting to paper or to keyboard anything that may have originated elsewhere. Students who are caught plagiarizing can be expelled or suspended, or worse. Journalists or others in the media can lose their jobs and have trouble ever finding another one that doesn't involve offering French fries to hungry teenagers.
Dude, you want to try to do that?
But what are some of the types of plagiarism you have to be aware of? Well, there's copying verbatim, i.e. copying someone's work word for word without citation. No bueno, obviously. Then there's copyright verbatim with citation, which happens when you fail to put quotes around the line or lines you're copying. Just a couple clicks of a particular keyboard button could keep you out of a ton of hot water. And finally, there's paraphrasing, which is when you get really clever and change 3 or 4 words to make it seem like a totally different sentence. Nice try, Slade. Copyrights protect ideas, not just the words expressing them. So if it's obvious you're ripping off someone's precise idea, start thinking about whom you'd like to be the recipient of your one phone call from you-know-where.
Mommy, help me!
When in doubt, cite. You can get in trouble for not citing, but you'll never get in trouble for citing too much. You might give your readers a headache, but at least you won't suffer Johnny's fate.
So the video's a little silly, but plagiarism is serious, especially for students, because ultimately you're going to want to get a good job, presumably a good job that you've spent a great deal of time and probably money studying for. And if you mess up your academic career with plagiarism, it's probably going to be pretty hard for you to get a job. And my colleague Danielle will have some excellent examples of that in just a little while. Did you know that according to the Center for Academic Integrity, almost 80% of students admit to cheating at least once? And that 90% of students in a poll by US News and World Report believe that if they cheat, they won't be caught or punished? Unfortunately, most of the time you will. Some forms of plagiarism, use of an assignment for multiple classes, that's self-plagiarism. And there's a very simple way around that, which is, let's say you wrote a paper last year for a particular class, and it fits perfectly with a class you're taking this year. You can always ask your professor, I wrote a paper last year that's on the same topic, and I thought it was really, really good. I want to revise it and continue working on it and use it again. Can I do that? If they say no, you got to write a new paper. But some of them very, very well say, sure, if it was already good work and you want to expand on it, go ahead. It won't be self-plagiarism if you've got permission in advance to do it. Inappropriate collaboration. If you have a solo assignment and you wind up writing the same paper because you're writing it with 3 or 4 people, that's not really any good either. You can't use someone else's assignment or misrepresent or inventions or ideas. So if you claim to have invented the telephone, you're probably not going to get a very good grade. And it's fairly likely that there might be some sort of disciplinary action for making such a ridiculous claim. Some of the consequences, on the low end, failing grade for that assignment or the course, suspension from school, permanent notation on your academic transcript, and probably the worst, expulsion, and maybe even worse than that, a negative reputation. Because if you're caught plagiarizing, the next class you go take, you can believe that a professor will say, oh, you know what, I had that person in my class and they totally plagiarized an assignment. You're going to have a strike against you going into the class. Even if you never do it again, you might wind up getting lower grades from a professor just because they know that you had plagiarized in the past and effectively continuing to punish you for it. So, how to avoid plagiarism? The difference between common knowledge and research. Common knowledge is information so widely known that no research is needed, like Barack Obama was the first black president of the United States. Research is factual information based on reputable sources. For example, Barack Obama was born August 4th, 1961 in Honolulu, Hawaii. Acknowledge the source you're using according to the appropriate citation method. MLA, APA, Turabian, Council of Science experts. Most of the classes you're in want APA. Some of the English classes may want MLA, but even those lately seem to be using APA. And use the resources that are available. Your instructor can help you with citations. Purdue's Online Writing Lab is a really excellent guide to MLA and APA. And we have the Writing Studio on campus. They can always help you with citations as well. And in addition, so can the library.
And a plug for the Writing Studio right in front of you in the flyer is how you make appointments to see a writing consultant.
And I can tell you from having worked with them, they are really good. Quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing. If you're quoting an exact idea or words, put quotation marks around it. That's 4 extra keystrokes, because I think you need a shift key in there as well. But 4 keystrokes, you've taken a piece of text that was directly copied and turned it into a quote. Paraphrasing or using the ideas of another person, you can certainly put things in your own words, but you've got to say whose idea it was. So if you're talking about, let's say, the theory of relativity, you might mention in that sentence Albert Einstein's theory of relativity from 1911 states that energy is equal to the mass of an object times the square of the speed of light. You've just credited Einstein with that idea. It's not plagiarism. Summarizing, providing a general overview or the gist of a work without specific details, that's also okay as long as you cite the source. You reference who was talking about this. So in all of these cases, you have to give some credit. The way you give credit may be a little bit different from one source to another, but if you're giving them credit, you're not stealing their ideas. So cite right. Love is the only force capable of transforming an enemy into a friend. Martin Luther King Jr. So the top is incorrect. The bottom one is the correct citation. Even though there is not like a parenthetical citation after that, it is in quotes. And the speaker of the quote is mentioned in the sentence before the quotation itself. Academic integrity and honesty are absolutely key to maintaining an academic career. Understanding plagiarism can help you understand why it's committed and how to avoid it, and it's not difficult to avoid. Citation styles vary, so make sure from your instructor, if you don't know, if it doesn't say explicitly, ask them, what citation style are we using for this? Most of them are probably going to say APA, but be sure of it. Quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing are all ways to give credit where credit is due. Does anybody have any questions for me? Yes?
When you're summarizing, you said you still have to cite it. Would you put quotations around that?
In-text citation.
An in-text citation, you don't necessarily... So the question is, when you're summarizing something, do you need to put quotation marks around it? You only need to put quotation marks if you're using the exact words. But if you're summarizing an idea, you need to say somewhere in the sentence whose idea it was.
And I would also argue, say, whose idea was and in-text citation. Don't be sure. Even with the Albert Einstein theory of relativity, I would say Albert Einstein's theory of relativity formulated in such a date, and I would still put in-text citation.
In parentheses, Einstein, comma, 1911.
Parenthetical, in-text citations. That's
And
fine.
those are fine to use. You don't have to put quotations around something that's not that person's exact words. But you definitely want to work in the credit there. And that's really all it's about, is credit. If I borrowed, if you said like the most amazing thing I'd ever heard and I wanted to use it in a paper and I wanted to use it as a direct quote, I would give credit for it because it's important that everybody knows you said it. I think about it from the perspective of someone who's writing something. You want everybody to know that you said that because someone thought it was good enough to use. They ought to let everybody know it was you who said it. These are some of the sources that were used for this particular presentation, and I'm just going to put up the Writing Center contact information, and I will leave this up here for you just for a couple of minutes. And now Danielle Colbert-Lewis will tell you about some of the things we have available in the library to help you avoid making crucial academic mistakes.
Thank you, David. So David talked about what is plagiarism and how to avoid it as far as citing. So the library, yep, I'm good. So the library is here, James Shepherd Memorial Library, and there are 5 libraries on campus. So library staff members, librarians, so we're here to help you make sure you know how to do that. So we said how, but exactly what does that mean? So we're going to talk about the tools that you can use. And I have a couple of examples as well about just the consequences of plagiarism, just to make sure. I know you got it, but all types of stuff happen. Plagiarizing, I don't know if you noticed even on movies, the copyright statement that comes up, right? I love this. I always have to use it. What do you mean all my facts are wrong? I copied everything straight off the internet. I don't know what it is about the internet. There's so much text out there. I feel like people think it's either true or they can just get away with it. Not you, but other people, not you. So in real life, we mentioned a little bit of examples, but I just want to show you how in real life what happens. We talked about unintentional plagiarism, so I'll let this one go, but just check it out really quickly. And we mentioned a lot of this before. So this happens to be from Duke has a plagiarism tutorial. So today again, we talked about the whole citing, what's not common knowledge, making sure you quote, and be loyal to a source, of course, giving credit where credit is due. And I always want to liken it to, if you've ever been in a group of your friends, or if you've ever been at a meeting, and you say an idea, and then no one hears you. You know what I'm talking about? You say an idea, we should do X, Y, Z, and no one hears you. You're like, I don't even know how that happened. You say it again, everybody kind of ignores you. Then all of a sudden, a person like in the back says the same thing. Everybody's like, oh my God, that's the greatest thing ever. How does that make you feel? Are you not mad? Every time I even think about it, I get upset. But that's pretty much what you're doing to the author, right? When you're taking their words. You're like just making them upset. Because eventually it does catch up to you. So here are some real life examples from the news. More recently, in January, Monica Crowley, she was pretty much, Trump had picked her to be her national security counsel or be national security advisor. Come to find out, people were, as they always do, they look into everyone's background with those cabinet positions or any of those positions in the White House, and they first looked at her book that she had just came out with, and it looked like it was plagiarized, right? Then they said, well, if her book's plagiarized, let's look at her articles, because she's an author. She writes articles in various newspapers. So then she plagiarized her articles, right? So then they started looking at her dissertation. So now the university is saying that she might have plagiarized her dissertation. So now it's under review, which means they could revoke her degree. That means she is no longer Dr. So-and-so. I mean, it could just get that far. There's a lot of ones like this in the news that happen, but this one stands out because it was just one of those things where you're like, wow, this catches up to you. So this wasn't just one incident. She's probably been doing this, doctorates at least 3 to 5 years. The book maybe took her 3 years. She might have been doing this for the last 10 years, right? But when she wants this great job, boom, that's when it hits her, right? So plagiarism does catch up to you. It is big. And this is public. So hopefully it won't be as public for you because it won't ever happen. Yes.
So the people who edit her books and papers didn't notice that she plagiarized you?
Well, here, what's interesting about publishing is, yes, thank you. So, young lady mentioned, so did the publishers look at her book before, I guess, they decide to publish it? Is that what you're saying, pretty much? So usually if you are a renowned author, so if you're a really good writer and you're writing in the New York Times, you're not writing in the Huffington Post, people kind of assume you're great, right? Because they're not really looking for you to plagiarize, especially if you're on talk shows, you're on all these news segments. So then they ask you to write a book and you just start writing, right? Usually they approach you, we'd like for you to write about this topic. You've been doing it already in all your news segments. Go ahead and write about it. So you just start writing. You get deadlines, and then I don't know what happens, but if it's a really good book, people kind of just look at it like, yeah, this is great. And I don't know, they might not be running through SafeAssign like the university does. But sometimes that's what happens. They are not really carefully, they are literally going on your reputation and what they've seen from your work in the past. And they look at it, they're reading it to make sure it's grammatically correct. But as far as you citing, they might not be looking at your citation style. So it could be that Monica cited all types of stuff in the index, or, not in the index, but she might have cited it in the notes section, but in the writing itself. So what they are making her actually go back and do is literally in each of her paragraphs cite everything. So that's what she didn't do the first time. So she probably wrote the book, and again, if you're writing a whole bunch of text, people don't know where you're getting it from, right? They just kind of automatically assume, like, that's the greatest idea ever. Monica had it, right? And then they go back and they realize, oh, wait, she plagiarized. So now she's having to go back and review her book. They pulled it from the press, and now she has to go back and literally either rewrite what she has written because she can't remember where she got it from, because if you're writing that much, you might not remember. Or she's literally going back and doing parenthetical citations in text, right? Or if they're, depending on what style they're using, they're doing note style. But that's the kind of thing that can happen. Robin Thicke and the Blurred Lines lawsuit. Everyone remember that? Right? So music, it's also like fraud and copyright, plagiarism, they're all kind of wrapped up. So as far as music, there is that one little beat, and it was considered a copyright issue.
What happened with TT Tech? Because I remember that they had closed schools down.
Yes, they have been around for a long time. So they pretty much were fraud and they were fraud and deceptive in their marketing tactics. So over time, the question was, what happens to ITT Tech? So they were telling people and guaranteeing people things that they could not do. And they were, they had in all of their marketing materials. So now it's written that they're guaranteeing people these things. So, and they're saying it in all of their speeches about how great their university is and all the things that they can do for you. So in that case, after a while, the graduates of the graduates of ITT Tech, they pretty much were like, I can't get a job like you promised me. I have all this debt, and you said I could get all this help and all these job opportunities, but I didn't. So pretty much they filed, I want to say it was probably a class action lawsuit and various things, but it ended up closing. I mean, this university's been around, well, this IT Tech, I feel like 30 plus years. But that's how bad it can get, right? Pretty much they're either being deceptive, copyright violation with the blurred lines. Robin Thicke did end up having to settle with with Marvin Gaye's family for that particular for that song. And then Melania Trump, when she spoke at the Republican National Convention, I don't know if anyone saw that, but if you see the split screen, there's Michelle over there. And when they put it side by side, it was very much similar to Michelle's speech. And of course, when you're similar to someone's speech and you did not cite where you got it from, it's considered plagiarism, right? And I always like to say, did you hear much out of Melania Trump after that? Do you hear much from her at all? Exactly. So now, her reputation, right, is at stake. And I don't know if she's ever going to speak again in public. But after that, she did not. You haven't seen much of her. But that happens. Robin Thicke, I don't know, his whole life ended up falling apart. He got divorced. Y'all remember that? I mean, it was crazy. So just think about the fallout effects from plagiarizing. Now, I always say, well, it's supposed to say blame it on the kryptonesia. Sometimes there is a situation we talked about unintentional plagiarizing when you, to describe it better, someone tells you a joke, you laugh at it, it's funny. 2 months later, you tell the same person that told you the joke because you don't remember where you got it from. So that is a legitimate memory situation. The British Journal of Psychiatry, they actually talk about how people experience partial cryptomnesia. You just don't remember. So it's just funny. So it is an actual thing, but still, it still will get you in trouble. But it is a thing that you're like, I don't remember where I got it from. You tell the joke, you tell someone something, and they're like, yeah, I told you that. You're like, oh yeah, it was you. But it just didn't come to you at that moment. So it is a thing, but still there are consequences. Your reputation, which then is your money, right? And also your career. And I have this little fortune cookie here. Your reputation is your wealth. So, if you have a good reputation, a lot of good things will happen. If you have a bad reputation, a lot of things are at stake. So how does the library come into play? We make sure you have good resources. So a lot of times when writing, in particular, one of the things about why people plagiarize is because they don't feel confident about their writing. So the library is here for you, because the more you research things, finding those articles, finding those books in a timely fashion, we help you find it fast, then you can feel confident about what you're writing. Because then you're knowledgeable, right? So once you're reading it, you've got the knowledge, you've got all the citations in front of you, now you feel better to write. So this is the library's homepage. It's kind of show you how, you can search for books here, search our databases for articles to help you. We also have ebooks. So there are so many resources out there for you to not even have to as long as you're ahead, right? You're not running behind and the paper's due tomorrow. We can help you with that. We can help you if the paper's due tomorrow as well. Can't help you write it though. But here are all of our numbers. So we have lip guides. I do have a plagiarism lip guide that again explains all this. So if you ever get a chance, you can check it out. And just to give you an example, our lib guides are pretty much quick guides to help you with subject matter. So again, if you do not know where to start, our lib guides kind of give you an overview of what's the best resources as far as books, databases, and the liaison, the library that can help you with that subject. And let me just show you. So if you're on our library's website, here is the subject guides link. And then once you get to that subject guides link, you'll see guides that look like this, but they're very helpful for, again, if you don't know where to start on a subject, it gives you exactly the books, the databases, kind of gives you a guide, terminology. So in the library, we have media collection, we have like DVDs, we have audiobooks, we have over 300 databases, and we have, of course, print collection, hundreds of thousands of books to assist you. So again, you won't even have to plagiarize. I always think, well, maybe people don't understand why, I guess the sources, right? Sometimes the best source, maybe you don't know where to look. Well, usually your professor is wanting various sources. So there are 3 types of sources, typically. Primary sources, which is the first-hand accounts, like of that particular situation. So you have your interviews, your speeches, people's diary, birth certificates, so that's the first-hand information. And then there's secondary sources, like our journal articles that's talking about what happened, right? Or our textbooks, the commentaries, again, they're talking about what happened. And then tertiary resources like encyclopedias. So there's many different sources. Try to get as much as possible a primary source, but a lot of times your professors are referring you to go for the journal articles, which are great. But sometimes you just have to understand like how sources are, you know, the primary, the secondary, the tertiary, and what they're called and why they're good. So primary sources are always good because they're the original source. So many times when you're looking on the internet or you're listening to a newscast, you're literally hearing it from the 10th source, right? So always I suggest whenever someone says, let's say they say they always talk about health. So the American Medical Journal said, blah, 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 something is bad for your health. I remember they said flossing. The American Dental Association said that you don't have to floss anymore. They said you had to floss every day. Now they say that's not as important. And I heard that and I said to myself, I really need to check that out more. Because after 30 years of saying that, they all of a sudden said it was, not okay. That's what the news said. So if you want to be sure, you would go to the American Dental Association, look at actually what they said. So a lot of times with the fake news, they'll say someone said it, but they might have it out of context, the newscaster. So the best thing to do is to go, if they said it's coming from here, go to that source itself and see if it's really there. Wikipedia is famous for that, right? I don't knock Wiki. Wiki is a great guide to just something really fast. I always like to say, where did 2 Chainz come from, right? Wiki page, very detailed about 2 Chainz. All types of stuff, right? But if I really want to make sure it's true, they have all these sources at the bottom on where they got it, right? So if I really want to make sure it's true, Wikipedia has the sources at the bottom is what I directly go to. Does that make sense? So as far as citing, we had talked about making sure you cite. A lot of times your professor wants you to cite a certain way, either in Chicago or MLA or APA or Turabian. And Turabian and Chicago may be interchangeable. Just depends on your professor, but a lot of times it is almost the same. It's like the same, but some people are very much like go with Turabian or go with Chicago. But those are the 4 most popular styles. And then I say citation generators for real. So these are the citation generators. The Purdue Online Writing Lab we mentioned before. They have a great, pretty much next to having the book itself for APA and MLA, the Purdue OWL. And if you type it in Google, it's always the first hit that will come up. It's just as good as having the book. I don't want to say it's not 100%, but it makes a 500-page book like the Cliff Notes version of it, right? It tells you exactly what you need to do, how to cite the paraphrasing, how to do the in-text citations. EndNote is what we support here for how do you manage all your citations, because a lot of times all that information can get away from you. So our EndNote, myendnoteweb.com is what we support here at NCCU and at Shepherd Library, help you manage all those citations. So Landmark Citation Machine, CiteFast, NCSU has a citation builder. So all of these are just really great citation creators and generators. So what that means is that you literally type in the information, you choose the style, like you say you have MLA, and then you choose your style, and then it will formulate the citation for you. So here's what Purdue OWL looks like. Has anyone seen Purdue OWL before? Yes, yes, okay. Great source. Like, they got 20 years on it, right? 20 plus years. They're awesome. I love them. They do have, and they have Chicago as well. Because at one point I didn't find Chicago, but they do have Chicago.
Who uses Chicago?
History, and a lot of publishing. I'm finding that in grad school, for some reason, in library science, for example, they taught us MLA a lot, but then all the publishing companies want you to cite in Chicago. So I had to learn Chicago. It is interesting. But there's a guide for that. And we have Chicago, the full-length manual, under our ebook section. This is EndNote and what it looks like. Again, this is a really great, it manages your citations and it will create a bibliography for you. And as long as you're at the university, you can keep this so you can store every single citation you ever get. So that way you don't lose it, right? So let's say you want to refer to something this year, 2 years ago, 2 years from now you might need it. You have it all here in EndNote. Landmark Citation Machine, this is a really good site. A lot of the citation generators, I would say every other one does Chicago. This is the one that does do Chicago. And what I like about Landmark Citation Machine, citationmachine.net is the web address, is that it does the in-text citation as well. It'll let you know how you're supposed to put it at the end of that sentence. CiteFast, one of my fast favorites. This one is really nice because it will, as you are putting in things, it will generate a bibliography on that other blank side that you can cut and paste in your paper. It's beautiful. Like, it was one of those moments where I was like, oh my gosh, this is wonderful. And a lot of our databases, and I'll show you, do the citing for you. But this is, if you have a resource here that you didn't find in databases, that's when you go to the citation builder. Again, NCSU has a citation builder. They also have Chicago. And what's nice about this is that they have the Council of Science Editors. Every now and then, this may come up if you're in the sciences. If you're in the sciences, you'll definitely need it, but this is one of the few that actually have it in a citation builder. If you saw, most of the other citation builders did not include the Council of Science Editors style. And then EasyBib is really great. They do MLA for free. So if you know you're doing MLA, you can create an account, and it will also do your bibliography for you and make it nice and easy. It's a great source. And one of my fast favorites, I love all of them, of course. You can, there's an app, you can scan the barcode in the book and it'll type it in there. You can sign up using Facebook. Who doesn't love that, right? One last password to remember. So Ruffin is a good one. And again, as I mentioned before, most of our databases, we have over 300 databases, and I would say like 290 of them have that citation feature. So mostly all of them do that. But I always say it's a good idea to check for mistakes. Like, you are still smarter than the machine. A lot of times these citation generators, sometimes if you're in the databases, they might capitalize everything. You're not supposed to capitalize everything. So just making sure the last name and first name, that's where it should go. It's not often, but it happens. So if you're using one of our ProQuest databases, this is one of our perfect databases for multidisciplinary research. I always like to tell people to start here. It's like the Google of databases. This one, Academic Search Complete. If you want to find something, it will be in one of these two databases on like a little, on a small level. They have a little bit of everything. And then the rest of our databases are very specific and have more depth of information about resources. So if you're in this database, you'll see the cite feature right there. Really nice. And then you can cite it in whatever style you need and just send it to yourself. It's so easy. This is the other database I was telling you about, Academic Search Complete. These two databases again will cover, like I said, it's like Google of databases accept this will give you refereed sources, so those trusted sources like journal articles that have been reviewed by peers and experts in the field, scholarly resources that your professor wants you to use. So the databases are good for that, so you don't have to worry like, is this good information? Many people have looked at the peer-reviewed journal articles to make sure that they are indeed good research materials. So it has a cite feature. Again, you can choose with citation style. And then of course, if all else fails, you don't remember anything, you can always call, text, tweet. We can meet for a one-on-one consultation. And we, anytime, on the second floor, the reference department is where you'll get assistance for this type of thing. I spent like 2 hours with someone working on a citation. Sometimes citations are just, they're quirky. You're like, I have a table. How do I cite a table in Chicago that I found on such and such website? And we just will pour through the information and we will find the answer for you. And this could be for anything, not just citations, but for your research, how to get started on your research. So if you get that paper, I was saying your professor gives you the prescription, 2 articles, 2 books, take 2 of these and give it to me on this day, right? We can help you find all those resources so that way you can get started writing and not have to be in a hurry. Our hours are up until 2 a.m. most days of the week. So Sunday through Thursday, the library is open until 2 a.m. Only on Friday and Saturday do we close early. You can like us on Facebook. We're on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I have not figured out Snapchat in libraries yet. I'm working on it. Let me know if you have any ideas. Here are all the ways to contact us. Put this text information number in your phone. You can text us, call us, and of course, stop by. We always love seeing your face. And if you're ever off campus, we have off-campus access right here on our website. You just click off-campus access, and then it'll prompt you when you click on a database to log in with your username and password. Very easy. Any questions? Now I flew through that really fast because it was a lot, and we had said a lot of it. But if you have any questions, please do let me know.
What about, is there anything in particular, let's say if you're an online student and you're watching this, how they can utilize the website or just the resources?
We can always set up appointments for our online students. They can call us or they can email us. We can do WebEx with them. We have many ways that we can consult with them. Over the phone, WebEx, email, and we'll walk them through every step. So they can just start with, hey, I'm having trouble with off-campus access, having trouble with finding this, and we will literally go through however we can, we will help them. We've had people call from California, and they're like, I don't know what to do. And we walk them through whatever that is necessary to help them. So yes, we'll set up a WebEx for them, or they can call us. Thank you, that's a good question. So there's a librarian here in the evening, David Rockland, you met him earlier. He's here until 10 p.m., so 1 to 10 are his hours. So there's a librarian to assist you with research. So again, you can, get help for research up until that time. Online students, absolutely included. Any other questions? The best thing about our resources is a lot of them are online except for our books, but we have a great ebook collection, so that's accessible online. We have millions of journal articles that are accessible online. So a lot of our resources and the citation generators are online, so that will also help ease some of the pain of research by being a lot of it electronic. No other questions? Thank you for the questions you did ask earlier. I'll be over here in case that helps, right? I'll be walking around.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate. If you want to go ahead and fill out your evaluation, and you can just leave it on the podium here on your way out. And thank you for coming.